What we're requesting is that the City Council review and reject what we believe an incorrect professional staff interpretation of the permit applications. And you, like I say, you've had it all before you, and you've heard the previous speaker. Next slide. This is, again, just to highlight the point that this is some of the wood being torn out of this house. This house basically is being completely rebuilt from the bottom up, inside out, and then they're tearing off the outside after all the work is being done on the inside. They're completely gutting it and completely replacing it. Next slide. Well, in conclusion, I just hope this is just a to show you the project, the scope, and just hope you will reconsider, have the city staff take a look at this and look at some of the inconsistencies. And if, we would, like I say, we would request a further face-to-face meeting that way we can detail any questions or any issues. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer.
Peter, I would ask that Development Services revisit this issue. The numbers I'm hearing today are a little disturbing. If the renovation is going to cost $98,000, the property is only worth $86,000. That's clearly more than 50% of the value.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir, Councilman. So we're already doing that in this face-to-face meeting. I personally have, and as has many staff, spent time on North Beach with Ms. Meyer and others. What we've asked recently is that the developer, the owner, provide receipts. So as I explained to Ms. Meyer, the onus to be honest and provide accurate information is on the petitioner or the applicant, in this case the rehabber of these properties, and we trust what people are telling us. So he provided those reports that you saw today. There's some concern, so we've asked him to show us more information, give us actual receipts of work performed to date, and then we'll see how that stacks up against his initial reporting. And that's what we're doing. So we expect that by the end of today, we'll have those. So we've been working with the North Beach group for several weeks in this, Councilman.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mike Carlisle?
Peter, I just want to say I agree with what y'all are doing. I think I've been over and looked at this building personally. I know Councilman Roy has a number of times, and we've all visited with the North Beach folks about this, and I think we really dropped the ball on this one.
Yeah, we're going to find out. So the onus, as I explained to several council members, in Development Services, they have to trust what the applicant's saying. We don't have the staff to go out and fact check and verify.
I don't agree with that statement.
Okay,
Peter,
so
we don't have to agree with anybody.
Right. So
or believe anybody.
Well, let me just add that we didn't just take it and say, okay, that looks good. What we did is the staff actually priced out some of these items, looking at Home Depot and others, to see is this reasonable. And the staff told me when I met with them many weeks ago on this, when it initially came to my attention, that if somebody bought the lowest of cost materials from a Home Depot or a Lowe's, that this is a reasonable assessment. So that's that. You'll see that memo that's in there from Al Raymond. That was kind of the result of that.
That doesn't address all the FEMA issues and the flood zone issues.
Well, so the laws are as long as you do that 50% of the value, and then they can rehab it. But having said all that, we're going to know by the end of the day based on actual receipts.
Right.
We're asking this gentleman to fact check and provide more information to us, and we'll see. We're going to get the results.
We've got somebody doing appraisals who doesn't have a working phone number or reasonable address. I think and the thing came out at 47 point whatever. It's a little suspect to me.
Yes, sir. That's why we're double checking it.
Councilman Roy.
The other thing that I wanted to just address as a statement of fact is that early on when I got involved in this, I also had a concern not only about the flood part, but just the quality of work. Because as you know, you can't really inhabit a building unless you have an occupancy
CO
certificate to be able to go into that building. And I've been down there twice, taking a look at. I'm not a contractor, even though part of my job as a project manager for a bank and looking at construction sites, I've looked at a lot of construction sites. But again, part of my concern, and I've addressed that with city staff, is making sure that this work is done with quality. It meets the standard to be able to have a certificate of occupancy. Because if you really are doing this at a low budget, are they cutting corners to the place that it's not safe? And that's been something that I have expressed to the staff. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Peter, so I think everybody's interested in getting that update, so thank you
Yes,
for
ma'am.
that.
We'll have that later this week with the council.
Thank you. Let's see, Mike Carlisle, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I'm Mike Carlisle, and I live at 3749 Beaver Creek. And I'm here this morning to invite everyone, the council members and mayor and the city of Corpus Christi to our Texas Historical Marker dedication at the USS Lexington on Saturday, February 17th at 11 a.m. And we hope y'all can all make it.
Thank you, Mr. Carlisle. I think that's all of our in-person comment. I think we have somebody on WebEx and somebody on phone.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So the first one, person on phone is Jumana Al-Abed.
Good afternoon. I'm honored to speak before my city council today. My name is Jumana Al-Abed. I'm at 6925 South Padre Island Drive. I'm with the Corpus Christi, Texas Palestinian Solidarity Community. I'm a local Palestinian American, and I'm here today to make a comment about the city's use of tax money. It is estimated by the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights that 4.28 million of Corpus tax dollars are sent to Israel yearly. Our tax money should not be going to fund a genocide overseas that has killed over 12,000 children and 30,000 people. Instead, that 4.29 million deserves to be used for the direct benefit of the people of Corpus Christi. Some members of the City Council have released statements in support of Israel without extending the same compassion, support, and empathy to Palestinian constituents. Where is the compassion for Palestinians in your constituency who have been devastated by the loss of multiple family members? Lastly, I condemn the city of Corpus Christi for normalizing relations with the genocidal apartheid state of Israel by allowing an Israeli desalination expert to come down to Corpus Christi to give a speech about desalination in Corpus, and sending our port CEO to Israel to learn about desalination. I also condemn the desalination plants proposed to be built in Corpus Christi. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Albed. The next person is not a Corpus Christi resident, and that's Lydia Ponce. So she does get a minute to speak.
Good morning, relatives calling from Venice, California. And why would I call in for Corpus Christi? Because I love the oceans. And I work for Society of Native Nations, proud Earth Justice Coordinator. I am here to talk to you, to point you to the direction of the Guardian U.S. last Friday's article that the Atlantic Ocean circulation nearing devastating tipping point, meaning that salination matters and that the desalination, man-made, further impacts the accumulative impact globally. And what we have to take a look at is the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, AMOC for short. I please ask that you look into this article published at the Guardian U.S. because it does talk about the tipping point. Our currents are slowing down, our oceans are more acidic, and we are definitely killing them slowly but surely in the next 10, 20 years. I, for one, want everyone to have healthy air, healthy water, and definitely healthy oceans. I thank you for your time. And that ammonium plant, just look at Beirut 2020 and see how many people it displaced and killed.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ponce. Mayor, that concludes the public comment period.
Thank you, Ms. Huerta. Okay, Mr. Zanoni, we'll go back to your city manager's comments.
Great. Just one more item here, and it's on the March 5th primary elections. We thought it'd be important just to, as a government entity, just remind everybody about this election coming up and what it is. And so Tuesday, March 5th, is the 2024 Democrat and Republican joint primary election. Early voting starts soon, and it will be for about a week and a half. And so early voting begins Tuesday, February 20th. That's next Tuesday. And it will conclude on Friday, March 1. There are 14 early voting locations across the city where voters can vote early rather than on Election Day. And then on Tuesday, March 5th, the actual Election Day, voting polls will open at 7 a.m. and they'll remain open until 7 p.m. And so why this is important to the community is that in addition to presidential primary election material, there'll be primary elections for selecting federal, state, and countywide candidates for the ballot in November. That does include the U.S. Senate and the House of Representatives. Persons can make decisions now on Texas Senate and Texas representative seats that would be ultimately in the November ballot. The district attorney and several court judges will also be on this primary ballot. And then finally on the primary ballot will be county commissioners seeking to be on the ballot in their respective what do you call them, the precincts, and the sheriff as well. So the deadline to register in this election has passed, but residents can still register to vote in the November election, and they can do that all the way through October 7th. So according to the Nueces County Elections Department, applications for ballots by mail for the joint primary election must be received by February 23rd, 2024 of this year by 5 p.m. Ballot by mail applications are good for 1 calendar year and expire December 31st of each year. So you must request an application every year. That's if you do the ballot by mail. So the City of Corpus Christi is dedicated to facilitating voting process for our city employees. I want to point that out to this City Council. In 2021, we first established a policy for city employees that if a city employee has a work schedule that doesn't allow them to easily vote on any one of these voting opportunities, we encourage department heads to work with their schedules so that they can get out and vote. And that means allowing them to flex their time so that they can vote and then go back to work thereafter. So in previous elections, City Hall was used as a polling place in a primary election. But at the decision of the Nueces County Clerk and due to the expected large turnout in this election, so as to not to interfere with other transactions that happen on City Hall, the location for the primary election instead of City Hall will be at the La Retama Library, just right down the street. So there'll be better accessibility and better parking for voters in that location as determined by the Nueces County Clerk. So the Nueces County Clerk is working on finalizing the list of polling places, and that's expected to be available online by the end of next week. And so if you're interested in those early voting, Tuesday's the first time to vote, but the full list will be available by the end of next week. You can visit the Nueces County Elections website page at nuecesco.com, and residents can find sample ballots there. You can find the voting locations and ballot by mail information as well. We encourage all our city employees to vote, and we encourage all our fellow citizens to exercise their right to vote in shaping the future of Corpus Christi, the state, and the U.S. And Mayor, that concludes this presentation.
Thank you, Peter.
I've got a comment.
Ms. Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, can we revisit that ordinance, or I don't know what it was, recommendation? I remember the last time that I was running, there was something that was changed. How do we, so that, candidates can place signs at city-owned properties, like we have, 2 of them, or, right? Is it 2? We have Hilltop and Greenwood. What?
Right, yeah, we're working on that, Councilwoman. Right.
Okay.
Based on
Just wanted
council
to
input, there's been
remind
many
you.
opinions of the council, so we're going to try to develop something that fits the consensus.
And at the library now, because, that's the way most people can remember that there's an election, some people, that there's an election is if the signs, you'll see all these signs at the polling locations. So.
Yeah, in addition to the vote here flag that the Nueces County puts up, so it says vote here, right. Mm-hmm. Yes,
all right. Okay.
Peter, is there an expectation that would be decision be made before February 20th yet, when early voting starts?
So this is not a voting location here at City Hall, but
no, I mean for all city properties.
Oh,
for all the city locations.
Yeah, probably not by maybe by next Tuesday. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because I know in 2022 I had a number of people tell me that they didn't know where to go to vote because they didn't see the political signs out in front of the polling sites.
Well, okay, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So
I just want to say, I think there's plenty of opportunity for people to learn where to go vote. It's on every website you can think of. Just Google where to vote, and it's
Right.
there.
That's why I mentioned the county puts up the vote here. It's a big flag
Yeah.
that supersedes the height of any political sign.
Yeah.
But we'll work with the council on that for, for the next election.
Okay.
Or for this one coming up, this fall.
Thank you, Peter. That takes us to Section H, our board and committee appointments. Ms. Huerta? So we're going to start with a committee for persons with disabilities. And we have 5 vacancies.
I actually, can I move that we accept the 5 recommended persons that were recommended by the persons with disabilities?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so the appointments were the reappointments of Susan Tower and Imelda Trevino, and the new appointments of Sonia Derwachter, Michelle Jones, and Elisa Long.
I know.
Can you hear me now? No?
They can
Can you
turn it
please
up.
turn up the volume?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so Miss...
I made the motion to accept the recommended 5 persons vacancies from the committee, and she is naming those 5 persons.
Yes, that's correct. And it was seconded by Councilmember Barrera.
Okay.
Is that
So we have
clear?
a motion, we have a second.
Yes, ma'am.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The motion carries.
Next, we have the Ethics Commission. So appointments to the Ethics Commission require 2/3 vote of the full council, so that's 6 votes. So this appointment was postponed on December the 12th because the required number of votes were not met. And the nominees were Kimberly Ballinger and Candace Hart.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and start to my left.
Yes, so we have Ballinger. Let me let her catch up. And Hart. All right, so we're going to start with Mr. Suckley.
To my left, yes.
All right, Mr. Suckley.
Ballinger.
Okay. Mr. Klein.
Hart.
Mr. Roy.
Ballinger.
Okay. Mr. Barrera.
Hart.
Ballinger.
Mayor Ballinger. Okay.
Ballinger.
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 Let's end with Hart.
Okay. All right, Ms. Ballinger is appointed.
Okay.
Sorry, my paper's stuck there. Okay, so next we have the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. There's 1 vacancy. And at this time, Mayor, we can...
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. We'll go ahead and open nominations. Yes,
Mayor,
sir.
I'd like to
Council-
nominate Sharon Dilsous.
Sharon, okay. Councilman Klein? You were going to do the same? Okay. Any other nominations? Let's see, hold on here.
District 5.
Councilman Roy, did you have one?
Yeah, I'd like to nominate Jose De La Paz.
Yeah, he's District 1. And I think we should add that we don't have representation from District 1. We don't have representation from District 1. So we have Jose De La Paz. Okay, Councilman Huxley?
So we don't have anybody from District 1 on.
Not currently.
That would be the only one, De La Paz.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll nominate Jose De La Paz.
Well, he's on.
He's been nominated,
Yeah.
sir. So Dilsous and De La Paz.
Samuel Fryer.
Okay, Samuel Fryer, he said.
Well-
Okay, any other nominations, ladies, gentlemen? I'm going to go ahead and close nominations, and we'll start to my right, please.
Right, okay, Ms. Campos.
Dilsous.
Mr. Hernandez.
Dilsous.
De La Paz.
Hesley De La Paz.
Fryer.
Del, which,
Fryer.
oh, there's three, right? Okay.
And just one, yes. One vote.
De La Paz,
Del Sus.
De La Paz.
Del Sus.
Fryer.
Okay.
so we have a runoff
Yes.
between Del Sus and De La Paz?
Yes.
Okay, it was 4-3. Okay, we'll start to my left. Again, that would be
Mr. Suckley, I'm sorry.
De La Paz.
Del Sus.
De La Paz.
Del Sus.
De La Paz,
De La Paz. Del Sus.
Del Sus.
okay,
Okay.
So
Mr.
Mr.
De La
De La
Paz
Paz.
is a-
okay.
Okay, next is the reinvestment zone number 3. It's the downtown board. There are 4 vacancies. Historically, council members have served on this board. Council members Sylvia Campos, Michael Hunter, and Mike Pusley are eligible for reappointment. Additionally, the Downtown Management District is recommending the reappointment of James Sedgwick.
Of James Sedgwick? Sorry. Of James Sedgwick?
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a motion and a second to appoint all these individuals as stated. Okay, so all in,
When do we vote for officers?
next. Yeah, it's not officers, it's only for the chair. Yes, ma'am. So right now, we're, the people who are eligible for reappointments are Campos, Hunter, Pusley, and Sedgwick. So if I understood, the motion was made to do that. Right, we're going to reappoint those individuals, motion and second.
But we're going to vote for the officers after.
We're going to, yes, that's a separate action.
So we have
A motion and a second on the floor to reappoint Campos, Hunter, Pusley, and Sedgwick.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The motion carries.
Okay, and then the council does appoint the chairman for the reinvestment zone number 3.
I'd like to nominate, what is it, Everett Roy.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Roy?
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
Well, I didn't know I was being fired this morning.
Well, I'd like,
You know, I wish somebody would have let me know that that's what you wanted to do, but whatever y'all want to do. Just don't reduce my pay.
We're going to double it.
Okay.
All right, council members.
Yeah. Can I just say something?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
You know, Councilman Pusley's done a great job. Are we going to, and I was the vice, and with his current new endeavors, you know, this is by no reflection that he hasn't done a great job. Matter of fact, are we going to vote on the vice?
That'll be done, the committee itself appoints that. So the governing body appoints the chairman, but once we have a reinvestment zone number 3 meeting, then that body elects the vice chairman.
Okay.
So that would be done by the committee itself.
At the TERS meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay.
I look forward to continue to working with him.
Okay. The motion carries.
Okay, yes, ma'am. So the last one is the Senior Corps Advisory Committee. There are 3 vacancies, and they represent the following categories: 1 SCP volunteer, 1 RSVP volunteer, and 1 at large. The current members, Stephanie Brown, Joanne Cantu, and Allison Vela, are seeking reappointment, and they do fill those categories.
Move to reappoint.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Whitfield. Okay. Okay, but that'll take us to Section J, our consent agenda items 5 through 21. Does any council member have any item that they would like to pull for individual consideration? Items 5 through 21.
I will again be abstaining from number 8.
8? Okay, so we'll pull number 8 for your
Number 7, Mayor, and number 12.
Number 7, number 12. Anything else?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to pull number 6 and number 18 and 19.
Okay. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of items pulled, number 8, number 7, number 12, number 6, number 18, and number 19.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The motion carries. So item number 8 is Councilman Suckley's abstaining, and that is, let's see here. It's a zoning case for Thanksgiving homes.
Motion to approve.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The motion carries. Item number 7 is an ordinance authorizing real property exchange agreement with the Port of Corpus Christi Authority and the conveyance and exchange of 1208 Peabody Avenue and 1622 Van Loan Avenue. And this was pulled
By me.
You pulled that item.
Right, just for statement. Well, just to provide a statement. I did not support this the first time, and I'm just not supporting it the second time. I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Oh. Right. Okay, come on forward, and you can make your public.
I also did sign up to pull that item, because citizens can pull items according to the agenda. So I would appreciate it in the future if, when you ask the council if they want to pull that item, after that, please ask the public. Because according to the agenda, it said any citizen can pull an item.
Right.
So I'd appreciate it if you do that in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I just want to speak very quickly on this, that I think this land swap is putting the cart before the horse, and because there's a lot of things that need to be done before this desalination plant can move forward, so there's no reason to rush this land swap. It can be done at any time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weber. Did we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion, and do we have a second? We did. Oh, we did have a motion and a second. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
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 Okay, the motion carries. Item number 12 was pulled by Councilman, who was that? Councilwoman Campos? And item number 12 is a motion authorizing the execution of amendment number 2 to the co-op agreement with Great South Texas Corporation, DBA Computer Solutions. Your question or comment?
I just wanted to make a comment because Peter does a really great job in preparing us, for these amendments and motions that we have to do. But when I was reading it, I said, you know what? I need to emphasize that this company that we're moving to approve with this after this is that it's locally owned and that it's operated by a woman. I just thought we needed to acknowledge that. So I don't know. I don't have any questions for you, Peter, just to acknowledge your due diligence and making sure that you're looking out for us because she did come up with the lowest bid. So thank you.
Okay,
and
thank
with
you,
that,
Ms.
I
Campos.
move for approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The motion carries. Item number 6 is an ordinance abandoning, vacating, and closing .4132 acres of improved and unimproved public right-of-way on Mary Street. Who pulled this item? Councilman Hernandez, your question or comment?
Yeah, did we receive any compensation for this removal?
6. Sorry.
For the vacating of this easement?
No, sir, we did not.
And why was that? Is that our normal policy?
I understood. We send it out to all the operating departments. There's utilities underneath there. And so we were going to abandon in place the water, wastewater, and gas. But the stormwater was going to remain in place. So we're going to have them keep an easement. So it's going to be utility easement after the closure.
Yeah.
So is there a cost to us to remove those utilities?
There's a cost for the abandonment, yes.
And what is that cost?
That's an operating department cost. I don't have that on me.
And we didn't ask for compensation for removing that, for getting that cost back or recovering that cost for abandoning that easement?
The answer to that question is in that first paragraph under the backgrounds and findings in the memo and in a presentation that planning did in a council meeting on December 12th for that land swap, I believe, for the Lamar Elementary School. That closure language was included in that ordinance that was passed.
Okay, I'm asking you, did you ask for compensation or for the cost, to recover the cost of that as a department?
Are you talking about for the utilities?
Yes.
For utilities, right now, we're just closing and we're considering an easement right now. So the closure is just going to consist of an easement dedication, that 60-foot easement dedication. When the developer comes to plat, at that time, we'll decide as far as what utilities need to be relocated, moved, or capped.
Okay, so you're going to ask for compensation later time?
We'll determine
or
that at a
cost
later date, yes.
associated with that?
Yes.
The stormwater is going to stay in place, so we don't need cost for that. But the operating departments for, like I said, gas, water, and wastewater are going to assess that. But it's really just a realignment at the ends of the road. So that's what they told us when we worked with all the operating departments.
Okay, is it our standard practice not to get compensation?
It is not our standard practice, no, sir.
What is our standard practice?
Our standard practice is to have the requester perform an appraisal, and then we receive that appraisal and then ask for that amount.
Okay. So with that, I'll make a motion to postpone this until we get some, to follow our normal process and ask for compensation.
If I may add, this is tied to that grant, that low housing, so if you don't have the closure, then they don't get the grant for the low.
And Mr. De La Garza, for clarity, is this land that was given to the city, or is this land that we always had acquired? We've always acquired.
It's a city road, so we own it today.
Yeah, the road has been ours.
Yeah, this is, the item is to close and abandon a road.
Right. Okay.
There's a map in there, but it connects a big parcel that was given to us, in the form of, and then several single-family lots that were given to us by the foundation. So in between is the city road, so the closure of it is to make that whole big parcel contiguous and viable for tax credits that we could, that this community could be awarded. Just to remind the council, this is an affordable development, so it's in a sense, this council subsidizing affordable development for seniors that cities do. They help to do gap financing or
and veterans.
And veterans. So it's for seniors, veterans, and it's affordable housing that the city has a policy goal to help build.
No, this is a different one. Right, and this is tied to the grant. So you made a motion. I don't know if anybody would like to second that. There's no second, so the motion dies. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no.
No.
The motion carries. Next item pulled was item number 18. Go ahead.
I do agree with Councilman Hernandez. We need to be way more prepared and follow our regular protocol in the future. We can't have that ever happen again, especially on something that could prevent us from accepting that money. But thank you.
Okay, items 18 and 19. Councilman Hernandez, was that you?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
both of those, you can do both of those together, I guess.
Yes, and the reason I brought this up, and it's tied to item number 6 as well, because it has to do with this, and I have to thank the representative from Prosperity coming and having a discussion on this, but I brought up some things that he was not aware of, and I wanted to kind of go through this because I'm concerned about the appearance of an unfair situation with regards to TG 110 and ultimately Prospera with regards to how much they have benefited from this, from the city above and beyond what other companies have received. So just as an example of the time that I've been on council, in 2020, we voted for the 9% housing tax credit program for the villages at McCardle, along with the Fish Pond project But on behalf of Prospera, John Longoria contacted State Representative Abel Herrero to get him to not approve the fish pond project, which ultimately led to the Prospera approval of the villages at McCardle. In 2021, we sold the old firehouse between Karankawa and Tarankawa. We sold them the old fire station for just the appraised value without going to bid, again circumventing our normal processes to put that property out for bid for the highest price. And just recently, we sold them the property, or are selling them the property pending the approval of the 9% housing tax credit program, which only Prospera is actually competing for $10. And then we vacated an easement, just in item number 6, for no cost at all. On top of that, prior to being on council, we have provided loans in the amount of over $7 million of revenue loans, or what's sometimes referred to as a cash flow loan, to Prospera, and they've only paid less than 10% of those loans back. So they still have a balance of $6.4 million that they're carrying on the books. No other project since 2006 have gotten any loans from us. So what they do is they apply for these tax credits, don't have enough money, then come back to us for more money on top of that. No other project, no other company like Madhouse or Fish Pond has done that. So in looking at this, we have some sort of unfair thumb on the scale for this company, or at least the appearance of it, in both projects on how we provide them property, both in the sale of the firehouse in terms of providing that property for the old Lamar Park, the Lamar Elementary, the vacating of the easement, and then several loans which they have on some occasions not really paid anything back on, as if they are cash flow loans. This is a federal tax credit program. If we have this appearance, we are subject to federal investigation, and I'm concerned about it just from the face value, whether it's coincidence or not. This looks bad. Now, every time I get sworn into the city council, I always say the same thing. It is not the place for government to pick winners and losers, but to ensure there's a fair playing ground for people to compete equally. This does not in any way look like we're providing for a fair treatment for everybody participating in getting these 9% housing tax credit programs. I even reached out to other companies that do this, and they're afraid of retaliation from the city manager or the city staff for saying anything about this. So let me just say, I'm going to be voting against this because of the way of the appearance of how this looks.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, that was 18 and 19. I'll entertain a motion. Oh, you do? Go right ahead.
Peter, we received an email yesterday from Constance setting out the amounts that Prospera has borrowed, and it is a substantial amount. And the interest rates that are listed here, are those controlled by state, or is that something we do here locally?
Let me see if Constance is there. It's probably locally, Councilman, but right, this report was sent to you at the request of Councilman Hernandez, so we provided it to the whole council. But you can see you could also see these loans as many cities do these as a direct grant with no payback at all. So Prospera has says, you know what, we could get free money, but if we can cash flow these loans and pay you back, let's make them a loan instead. So at their request, they're not saying, let me just get free money from the city. Rather, they're saying, give us a loan, and if our pro forma works and we can pay it back over time, we're going to give you money back. And that's what they've done. They've made almost $1 million in payments that can go back into more affordable housing, as opposed to what many developers do, which is just take the free money and don't pay back the city. So these are arrangements that were made at the time of the deals. And again, to remind the council, affordable housing needs a subsidy from a governing body. Many Texas cities do this because the construction costs have to be brought down so that then they can lease or sell the product in an affordable way. And so governments do this. They provide gap financing to make the pro forma work. Even with the 9% tax credit, developers still can't build something and have it affordable, whether it's 80%, 60% of the average median income. So I would see this as I described, it's really their effort to be good partners with the city and try to pay us back rather than just getting a grant.
Okay, and the grant would come from the city? Is that what
Right, yeah, the cities in my former place where I was and many cities in Texas do grant awards, usually from federal monies, but it could come from your general fund or some other source of funds to help buy down those construction costs. So Prospera instead has said to us, we'll turn this into a loan, and if we can cash flow monies back to the city as the pro forma works at the multifamily community, then they'll do that, and they have made good on that promise with almost $1 million in payments made to the city.
Well, I mean, all I would say is that these interest rates, I mean, they're all over the map. There's 5%, there's a lot of 1%, there's 3%, there's one that's at 0%, so that is a grant.
Well, and then to answer that question specifically, Constance is here. I didn't see her, but Constance, can you answer that question? Oh, does Dan know it? Okay.
Well,
Dan,
let me finish my statement before we go. Okay. You know, my point is that those interest rates, I mean, we really are, I mean, you're taking taxpayers' money and you're subsidizing these low-income housing projects, which I have no problem with, but, you know, if we're going to do this, we ought to at least be charging a fair interest rate.
Yeah.
Because
you could.
They can't go out on the open market and borrow them. I mean, I'm going to play banker here for a minute. We ought to be at least prime plus one.
Right.
So, you know, I'm just concerned about how we're doing this and how it looks on the books. If I were a taxpayer, I'd say, well, how come I didn't get one of those loans when I built my house?
Yeah, because, right, we know the answer to that.
Low-income kind of guy, too. So,
no, you're not.
Well, not me personally, but other guys.
These are dollars that come from the HUD, from our home funds, and do have to be used for affordable housing in our community. So there's very limited places where these funds can go. And we do, at the local level, establish that interest rate. So that's something we can certainly look at as we have different requests moving forward on how we set that rate. We can discuss that for each situation.
Okay,
yeah, the rates are.
Say that again, Dan.
The interest rates, we do set them local. So we, as a city, we can do that. And so we can bring that up for each project. We can talk about what is an appropriate interest rate at that time.
Yeah, I mean, we ought to have some standard.
Yeah.
I mean, these are all over the map.
I agree. And I think to add to the conversation, you know, which we really need to look into moving forward is the competition.
Yes.
You know, the others. I understand that other cities, and I understand that we're not as large as some of the other cities around us, but they have much more competition. So why aren't we receiving multiple developers saying, hey, we want this? And I don't know the answer to that, and that could be very much their business, and they don't want, I don't know. But I think to some of your points, it's how are we doing what we're doing, and maybe there needs to be more structure to it.
Well, with this, the way I provided this information, the sale of the old firehouse without bids, the providing of that property for $10, the vacating of the easement without compensation, there is a perception that Prospera is in bed with the city. Okay, and that if you have that perception, you're not going to get the competition. Now, whether it's incorrect or not, that's the perception. We are seen as providing unfair benefits to Prospera, or in this case, TG 110, that may or may not be correct, but it just may be the circumstances that they were smart enough to ask to borrow money on top of that, because they borrowed a lot of money, right? $7 million, and they've $7.1 million, and they've only paid 6.4. So they haven't paid up to $1 million like the city manager stated. So it's a little less than $1 million.
I rounded up. It's 800,000.
About 800,000.
Okay.
So I want to say that we have to do a better job, because this is the kind of stuff that gets people into trouble. This is where the FBI steps in, because this is a federal program. It's just being managed through the state, and I want to make sure that we're doing everything right and that we're transparent to make sure that we don't have those problems. I don't want to have what happened to CCISD happen to us. Right? So let's do this thing the right way. Let's encourage competition. Let's make sure that the offer of these low interest loans are available to other companies besides TG 110.
Right.
So,
Okay.
like I said, I will be voting against this. Thank you.
Are we providing those loans to other companies?
We're providing let me have Dan, if you mind, Mayor, if you don't mind, having him talk about competition. So we had a very competitive process for the site. And should another person or entity have been awarded the funds, we would be offering the same opportunity to them on low interest loans, or even a grant if they said, hey, we can't afford to pay the loan back. If they were the best developer and they needed a grant with no repayable terms, we would probably recommend that, because we know it's incumbent upon a city, if they want affordable housing in today's day and age, you have to subsidize it. But let's have Dan talk about the competitive process, because it was pretty robust.
Yeah, we ran that RFI process. We had gotten the property from Ed Rochelle Foundation, and then within a few months we had put out a RFI requesting information from developers about projects they'd like to do there. So that was a very public process. It was on our website. We sent it out to over 50 individuals that are companies that had experience in the tax credit market throughout Texas. We sent it to our Builders Association. We got this out pretty wide and far as people that are in that industry. And so we did have 4 respondents on the single family, and Prospera was the only multifamily developer that responded to that. And so the right-of-way was always part of the logic in kind of developing that area. That was kind of discussed when we went through the option period in December, that it just made a lot of sense to combine that, because we have great connectivity in that neighborhood already, that taking out that piece of Mary really didn't disrupt the neighborhood whatsoever because of how that neighborhood was laid out and designed. So it was a very robust, I'd say, public process to find a developer. And so there was plenty of opportunity for others to submit. They just didn't. We just had the one multifamily.
I'd like to address that real quick, because in that RFI, it was specific, mainly geared towards single family. So a lot of multifamily houses would have probably not have done a lot with it, because it was geared towards single family. So again, maybe I don't know what the communication was with yourself and Prospera or the organization, but that was a lot of the reasons why other multifamily groups that do these kind of competitions did not submit for it. So I understand you had a RFI, but if it wasn't specific to a multifamily facility, then I want to say that you would have had not the respondencies that you wanted.
I mean, within the language, we did identify the multitude of different housing types that we would consider for these lots, between townhome, condo, multifamily, single family. We didn't specify single family.
You didn't limit it just to single family, right?
No.
In fact, you made it clear when you had the pre-bid conferences that you could submit multifamily, duplex, single family. Anybody could have, right?
Right. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Councilman Roy.
This is a serious accusation. To come up with this, and whether it's conjecture or remotely possible or whatever the case is, and I understand, Councilmember Hernandez, your concern, but this accusation is a pretty heavy accusation in terms of talking about the process and looking at whether or not city staff shows favoritism, whether or not we're doing something, or the city staff is that's inappropriate. I want to understand one thing. Now, two things. I want to make comment. In the last year and a half, and I think Dan could back me up on this, rates have been volatile. We've went from a rate environment a year and a half ago that was probably as low as 3%, right? And then all of a sudden, we're now in a different rate environment. Do you have the ability, when you do these loans, to set them so that if we had a change in terms of are rates that then they could be subject to change. In other words, similar to what Councilmember Pusley said, prime plus one or whatever, can you float those type of rates? Or do you have to do a fixed rate? To do a fixed rate at 3%, and now the average is at 7.5 or whatever the case is, and prime's at what, 8.25 right now? 8.5. Do we have the ability to look at that?
We do have the ability to look at it, but if they could carry the debt as a primary lender or primary mortgage, then it would be under the primary mortgage and it would be paid off with the rents and the tax credit revenue from the syndication and not have to be out of the cash flow loans. The fact that they can't pay it at prime plus one or track it to some sort of changing index,
right?
It's because it's supposed to be a soft second. It can, but that's usually not the type of financing that's provided in terms of a soft second.
But we have the ability, because we choose, if it was a grant, because I think what's been stated is that normally you can just basically give them a grant. In the case of Prospera, they're asking for a loan, which is we're getting interest that, in other words, if we gave them a grant, there wouldn't have been any interest, there wouldn't have been any benefit to that. We just simply gave them a grant. So is that correct?
They'd take a grant.
They would take the grant, but they haven't.
Correct. They've agreed to a loan at 3%.
Right. So what my question is, what's the benefit? Why would they, if other companies that are similar to Prospera usually do not propose taking a loan, and it's, if I'm right on this, correct me, but they take a grant, why is Prospera in the position where they want to take a loan?
We, being the city, decided a couple of years ago through discussions like this that we would only do loans from now on and that they would be at 3%. That was the conversation that we had, I want to say, 2 years ago.
So 3%, but I heard there's loans at 0% or
older loans.
Older
I'm
loans.
talking about just most recently we're doing loans at 3%.
Right now.
What?
Right now you're doing loans at 3%.
Yes.
That's
we
a heck
didn't
of a
have
deal.
projects last year or the year before, so there's not recent activity. So yes, loans at 3%.
Yeah, the thing I want to do, and I do think we got to make sure that you go back and look at your policies and procedures and the process to make sure that this process is equitable across the board.
And I do want to point out that the RFI went to over 50 people. So did the application for resolutions of support, and it got sent to all of the tax credit winners in the state last year, along with local entities. And in that application, which is a very simple application, in it says, what do you anticipate asking for in terms of home funds? So they're asked to tell us right up front, are you asking for home funds? Are you asking for what have you? There was also a statement made about recent activity. Fish Pond did receive almost $1 million, if not $1 million, between the home funds and Type A funds. So I just want to correct that statement.
And that was a grant?
I don't believe the Type A funds was a loan. I'd have to double check.
That's all I'm trying to do is hone on the fact that they basically got a grant. They're not paying that back.
I don't think. If they are, it's also a cash flow loan, and I promise we're so far down on the cash waterfall, we won't see it until it's refied. Well, that's how we get most of our repayment. But Fish Pond did receive subsidy, gladly.
And that doesn't come into play when you're scoring your applicants, whether or not that they're requesting a loan or want a grant?
No, it's the purpose of the funds.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I'm trying to come up with anything to understand if there's any
if we're contributing
bias.
Subsidy, if we're contributing subsidy, it's usually because we're buying deeper affordability in units. Most of the time when there's subsidy in it, we can get more units at 30% area median income because those units claim less rent. Therefore, they can't pay as much debt. Therefore, we have to have more soft subsidy because they can't cover their debt service. So the greater the subsidy, usually the lower the incomes that can be served and the higher the number of units at those lower incomes. We can serve more poor people with more money.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Suckley.
Thanks, Mayor. Great comments, Councilman Roy, some of the same things I was going to ask. And I won't belabor the comments both by Councilman Pusley and Councilman Roy about interest rates, but certainly there's a big difference between 0% and 5% or whatever the market rate is now. So congratulations for, putting something into effect a couple of years ago to at least put it at a 3% at that point, as opposed to 0 or whatever we'd been doing historically. But it's a big swing from 0 to 5% on $1 million plus is hundreds of thousands of dollars over the term of the loan. So I think we need to have additional conversations about that going forward, is to figure out what that index is going to be. To Councilman Roy's point about prime being 8.5 now, and it was 3% 2 years ago. Maybe utilize someone like Victor or someone that, don't rely on council members to peg your interest rate, but to use a independent professional like Mr. Quiroga to maybe come up with some ideas of what that could be. Thanks.
Thank you.
Councilman Barrera.
Peter, when you first got here, or rather when I guess we first employed Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't you try to come up with a policy so that way it could be very clear as to how the city council would move as to awarding the point structure on these projects?
Yes, Councilman, we did.
And I guess the council voted it down?
The council didn't want to, they voted it down essentially.
So we were going to put together a very transparent, clear, Jennifer, would you mind explaining that process that we voted down? It was when you were gone.
It was a couple years ago.
No.
We tried to introduce just an introductory, simple scoring method. It was not complicated. It was, again, simple. I think it was based on 100 points. We looked at the applications that we received for resolutions of support. We scored them that way and came up with an application that we were going to recommend for a resolution of support and one we were going to recommend for a resolution of no objection. We met individually with council members. That did not receive a lot of support. The feedback was we want to support everybody. So we went back to the drawing board. We then did a briefing to council and said, okay, we met with everybody individuals. This is the process. We are going to be back next week and we're going to recommend everyone. And then Winter Storm Uri hit and we met the following week and we presented both projects for for resolutions of support, and one was not granted. There was the council decided then to provide a resolution of support to one project and not the other.
Okay, and then last year there were no projects in Corpus Christi awarded, correct?
Correct.
The last 2 years.
The last 2 years.
The last 2 years, this community didn't receive any federal funds for affordable housing.
And I think, what was the name of the firm? I know it was in my district. It was off of Weber and...
They've gone by a couple of names, but you're talking about the Alma Adelante group.
Yes. So they would have been awarded the maximum points. And did we support that one?
We did.
Okay. And we supported that one, and they would have been awarded the maximum points, but their consultant erred on the application. Is that correct?
I believe so, yes. We supported their project 2 years in a row.
Okay, so we supported their project the last 2 years in a row, and we lost the tax credits to Victoria.
Yes.
So
I believe...
Did the FBI go to Victoria? Do you know?
I don't know.
I'm just curious. I'm just wondering. I'm just wondering. Did Prospera get that awarded, that project in Victoria?
No, I believe it was and excuse me, I don't know his corporation name, but it's a gentleman named Rick Deo who really knows his stuff. I believe he lives here in Corpus Christi and he's doing business in Victoria.
Oh, nice.
We got to figure out a way for him to do business.
And then Hey, didn't that city manager used to work for you, Peter?
He did, yeah, Jesus Garza.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
so he came from San Antonio,
And
yeah.
I think one of their assistant city managers, too.
Yeah, Mike Etienne as well.
All right,
Yes, sir.
I'll try and go back off of the sarcasm. I'm trying to move in a direction here.
I think both Fish Pond and Rick Deo have had some pretty good luck in Victoria the last couple of years.
Okay, so now the property on Greenwood, which
Yes.
Greenwood, West Point, and Galahar.
Yes.
About how many man hours does the city put into that? It's a 4% deal.
Hundreds.
Hundreds. And
I must say, me alone, 200.
yeah, so, and once again, this is another, and I met with them, what is it? And I know that they're trying to, I think they said they were going to rename it Lazarus because they're trying to bring it back from the dead, the project.
And can I quickly clarify? I don't mean just me, but Constance has hours into that. The directors have hours into that. Other staff, I just could only track my own by saying a couple of, but there are additional staff who have additional
Mine as
hours.
well. Mine too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
And so and I think they also were requesting a loan, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
We were also, that was 152 units. The Alma at Greenwood project was 152 units, and we had, from multiple different sources, including Type A, Type B, the Housing Finance Corporation, and home funds come together with $3 million to lend to them at 3%, amortized, I believe, over 40 years on 152 units.
Wow.
And we have come and presented that to the Housing Finance Corporation 2 or 3 times, and that project failed to materialize both times. And we looked at it again, and they've missed a deadline, and now they've come back again. And every time they've done that, staff, including department staff and executive leadership team and finance team, has bent over backwards to try and make that project work.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I appreciate all the work. And all I'm trying to prove is that, are you aware, I know I've contacted you on several occasions about individuals that I know that were in need of such housing, and how long do you think the waiting list is?
For which?
For any of these projects? I mean, the waiting list for a resident.
For a tenant or for one of these? Well, it depends on whether or not you need a Section 8 voucher. The Section 8 voucher list is almost 10 years long. So some of these projects don't keep active waiting lists. Waiting lists are not necessarily an effective management tool. People move around, people pass. But I would say 3 years? Yeah, let's go with 3 years.
So there's a definite need here in Corpus, and hence all the hundreds of hours that you put.
And Dan can speak more to the numbers on the need, but yeah, yes, sir.
Okay, well, I just want to thank you because I know, Jennifer, she's a crusader. I mean, on a project like this, and I agree. If we need to look at, we obviously want the public to have confidence in what it is that we're doing, and we're obviously subsidizing these rents. And if the bankers on board, and I serve on the board of a credit union, so I kind of get it as well. But these are for basically a specific purpose, and no matter who the developer is. So thank you, and thank you, Dan, and thank you for all the hard work that your team does, Peter, and projects like these. They're not simple, and we're not just picking winners and losers. So at least that's the way I see it. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. We vote? We have not. Councilman Pesley.
I'm sorry. I just got.
We're moving on.
One more real quick because I'm hungry and it's 1:30. Okay, so I guess here's a question I have. Dan or Jennifer, I don't know where she went. When you do one of these, this particular project we're talking about, were there other entities besides Prospera that submitted bids, if you will, on this?
Yes.
Yeah, we had, there was 3 companies that submitted pre-applications through the state. We have our own internal deadline, so that state deadline, I have one of the slides here, but was about back in the beginning of January, and then we have our own internal deadline to submit to us for the request for this letter of support, which is a big point getter in their whole application process through the state. And so we did have 3 applicants that did the pre with the state. Well, between that application and then the request of us, 2 weeks later, 10 days later, that third project dropped out. And so we were left with just the 2 letters of support that are on the agenda today. The one for the Morris location, which is where we have the Lamar School property at. And they also, the same company, Prospera TGT, also submitted a second project at William Street, close to the intersection at Rodfield. And the reason they did that, the Morris site, based on some of the more recent calculation, is a point ahead of the Williams Road site and is the preferred site. But we wanted to have letter of support for both, just in case there's some type of fatal flaw in the Morris application, because they still have to go through a rigorous state process, and that award doesn't occur until July. So that's why we're recommending both, because we never know what could happen with the Morris application as it goes forward. They're both great projects, at least hopefully if one fails.
So Dan, let me cut to the chase here. I appreciate your explanation, but I'm trying to simplify this here and compare it to like we would do an engineering bid. When we get bids for a project from engineering, they will give us a bid tabulation that shows all the companies that bid, what their breakdown of the bids were. So do we have that same documentation for this?
Yeah, we do have, I mean, within the presentation, we described the 2 projects, the size, the site.
So the 2 projects, there were 2 different companies that submitted for tax credits for those 2 projects.
Same company, but just 2 different locations.
Okay, same company. Did we have anybody else across the board that submitted?
We had the third, but they dropped out. That was the
Okay.
Mill Pond at Furman Avenue.
And
That
you got
was
no
the fish
explanation about why they dropped out?
pond. That's the fish pond developer. They have the Seagull Villa redevelopment that they indicated they wanted to focus in on that project this year.
That's the one downtown?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I guess in the future, what we need to do is, Peter, we need to, make sure we're keeping track of these and look at our policy on how we do these, especially as it applies to the interest rates. But I will tell the council this. I have a good friend who's, he's big time in the apartment building business. They build apartments all over the country. And I asked him one time, have you ever done one here in Corpus? And he said, yes, one. I said, well, how come you don't do more? And he said, because Corpus is a very difficult place to do business. That's exactly what he told me. Now, this has been about 10 years ago, but he said that, labor is an issue here. There are other considerations that these guys that are building these things have to take in consideration. So, anyway, that's all I.
Thank you, Councilman. So we're going to go ahead and vote on this, but Peter, I think you've heard the message, and it is, the original comment, which is there seems to be a perception. We can dig into, the weeds all we want. I think we do need clarity. And this conversation has happened before.
Right.
Many years ago. I'm not sure if you were here or not.
That was there, right.
But it has. So there's clearly, there needs to be more confidence. I don't care if it's 1 person, 3 person, 1 against 1, or whatever. It doesn't matter. There needs to be clarity. And that's very clear just from this discussion. So let's, I think you can, your staff can work on that moving forward.
Yeah, we can bring back that policy that has a scoring system to it.
Well, that's in black and white. That exists. Everybody can go look that up tonight.
Yeah.
It isn't, I think there needs to be more clarity as to all of the things that were discussed today, which may not all be in that policy. It may be, why aren't we getting more competition? What about these loans that are kind of here and there and the different, interest rates or wherever? Just, we need more clarity. We don't need to do it here and spend another hour on this.
Yeah, no
we
problem.
need senior citizen affordable housing.
Right.
We need to move forward, but I do appreciate what the councilman is bringing forth.
Okay.
So I don't think we just let that go. I think we do a little bit more due diligence on that.
Dan and his team will develop that and bring it back to council at all levels.
Perfect.
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to approve item number 17 and 18.
Second.
We have a
18 and
motion and a
19, Mayor.
second. All in favor, 18, 19, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
No.
Okay, the motion carries. Before we go to lunch, I'm just going to go to item number 22. I know Dr. Whitest is here, and she's been waiting for quite some time on the London item. That is an ordinance annexing, item number 22, ordinance annexing approximately 82.40 acres of land located at the northwest corner of FM 43 or Weber Road and London Pirate Road.
I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, I'm going to open a public hearing. This is what I just said. An item to annex the school, essentially, correct? Can we just get just a quick synopsis so the public can hear exactly what it is we're doing in annexing, what sits on the 82 acres, et cetera?
Sure. The proposed or the requested annexation includes their entire campus, which houses their elementary, junior high, and high school campuses.
All of it?
All of it. And
Okay.
all their athletic fields. We've kind of known, we've planned wastewater for this area. We knew eventually London was going to come in. And so now with the expansions they have with their athletic facility and some of the additions they're doing on some of the buildings, there's really a greater need now for them to tie into that public wastewater. And so that kind of prompted the discussion about being annexed. And so that's what was really kind of bringing this item forward.
Okay, great. I'm going to open public comment and just ask Dr. Whitest, do you mind coming up and just give us just a short synopsis on the plan and everything, the growth and the plan that you all have out in the London area?
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be with you this afternoon, and London is a growing place, and I welcome any of you to come out. I'll give you the nickel tour, but we are right in the middle of a $50 million part of our bond project. We passed a bond in May of 2022 for 96.1. So to date, it's an overhaul in athletic facilities, fields, as well as concession restrooms. That is slated to be complete. We are hoping March 1 because it is our baseball field of our state championship baseball team, and so the kids are on me, and softball as well. And so that is a complete overhaul, as well as a 14-room addition at the elementary campus, and then 10 rooms and some science labs at the high school campus, as well as a cafeteria for 450 kids. We're growing about 10 to 12% a year. We're ahead of pace on our demographic study, that even the high levels, and so we are a year-round school. So in July, I predict that we will be close to 1,900 kiddos. And when I started 5 years ago, it was less than 1,100, and over 200 staff members. And so right on the heels of the projects right now, we're going to open an early childhood building in July of 2025, and then an extension of our middle school to house grades 5 and 6. So we're not slowing down, and it's been a privilege working with you guys. And like I said, invite you out there, come see what's going on.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you, Dr. Whitest. Congratulations on that growth. Thank you. Did you have a comment, Councilman Klein?
Yeah, Dan, I want to appreciate, thank you for the information you provided regarding the additional costs to add in this territory to the city limits. I still have reservations about this. I think I'm going to be voting against it. It's nothing personal against the London folks. I think this is going to be a great addition to the community. I just have real concerns about constantly adding to our infrastructure while we are struggling to maintain and bring up to standards our existing infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Klein. Councilman Barrera.
Here, and just a couple things, and I hope you've briefed Dr. Whitest on this. So they do know, obviously, the stormwater drainage fee they're going to be subject to, and also now they're going to be subject to development services fees. So, and then how large was the bond package that was just recently approved?
96.1. 96.1.
Now they are going to get a 50% discount, correct?
Yeah, I think a lot of the structures have been constructed already.
Well, no. This is a project they just got approved, right? So there's new. Huh?
Yeah, they're in the works.
They're in the works.
Some of them are slated to be completed as early as March 1.
Okay, but I'm sure with all the growth that you have, you're going to have additional that are coming.
Absolutely. Yes, we're well aware of what's to come with this partnership, and it's doing nothing but growing. And so this is part one is about the $50 million, and as I said, on the heels, 2 more extensions to open in July of 2025.
And Dan, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you for, in fact, I think Gil had recommended this to you when he first got on the council.
Taken a while, had it go.
3 years ago.
3 years ago. So he's been an active partner to encourage that and encourage that development. And Dan, how many units do we have out, homes do we have out there right now?
I know there's 15 active subdivisions with more to come. And
Wow.
so we do our demographic studies and our due diligence. It's anywhere from 300 to 500 homes a year. And so finding seats for the seats, so to speak, is our challenge. But interest rates helped a little bit to slow some of it down.
And I want to thank you because I know as a district council member out there, in fact, I was out there last week with a group, and I talked to a lot of the neighbors, and the resounding, the commonality was, we're here for the school. And so Corpus Christi appreciates the ad valorem now, that because a lot of those areas are annexed now. And what is it? That's the additional ad valorem we have. We're able to provide additional services to those individuals now. The individuals that have not been annexed or they're receiving much better water pressure. So and a lot of it has to do with the quality of the education that you're providing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Whitus. Yes, Councilman Hernandez.
So I had recommended to London to annex in for other reasons specifically. As being outside the city limits, they're not technically covered by our fire department. And there would be some delay in if there was any issues going out there. Being in the city limits, they get direct access to that, and that, from Fire Station 18. So it's important. That was one of the key issues. Also, I know they're a growing school, and they take up a lot of land for their septic tanks. So they'll be able to utilize that land going forward. Not to mention, it's probably better for the environment considering their proximity to the Oso Creek. So I wanted to say this is a good thing, even though it may cost us a little bit in terms of the services, since they do not pay ad valorem taxes. But I think overall it's a good thing. It's important that as our citizens, we take care of them both in police service and in fire service. I would hate to have anything happen and us not show up as a police force. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Roy.
I just have a question. At what point do you think you're going to run out of land? And I mean, at this rate of growth, I'm just thinking in the future, and I'm sure you have a backup plan or a plan B.
We have a plan B, C, and no. We are looking for off-site land. We are at max capacity. We will free up, as it's already been mentioned, we will free up about 10 acres. But as far as the traffic flow, and over $4 million of the bond project was just to route traffic through our campuses and make it a safer environment. And so we're pretty maxed out. And so the next phase after everything I've just mentioned will be an off-site campus.
Well, great work. Good luck. And we're excited about it.
We are too. We appreciate partnering with you guys. It's been a good process. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Whitus. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to make public comment on item number 22? Okay, we'll close public comment, and I'll entertain a motion to approve.
The motion and a second on the floor, Mayor.
We do?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no.
No.
Okay. The motion carries. One quick last item under public hearings, and then we're going to lunch, I promise. It's a public hearing and ordinance approving a service and assessment plan of the Whitecap Public Improvement District Number 1.
Okay. I didn't know if I wanted to listen to it. I'm always. Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Third. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mayor,
Any
public
opposed?
hearing.
Oh, yeah. I'll go ahead and open public comment. Public hearing, I'm sorry. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment on item number 23? Okay, there being no one, we'll close public comment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The motion carries. So the council will now go into executive session on items number 27 and 28 per Texas Government Code Section 551.071 and 551.087. We will return.